Hey, hey! Let's see, am I in the right place? Oh my gosh, I've had some technical difficulties, so I'm sorry for being just a couple of minutes late. Um, but I just want to make sure I'm in the right place before I get started. Hmm. Oh, okay. Awesome. I'm in the right place. Okay. Yay. Well, I'm really excited to be here with you today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Coach Katie Collins, and I am here to talk to you about 3 masterful keys to enrolling new clients without feeling pushy. Sorry, getting myself situated here. Okay, and I do have some notes, so forgive me for glancing at those. While I go along. So today you're going to learn how to make sure every connection you have leads to a sales conversation if it's the right fit for a person. So really how to build that connection so that you feel called and they feel called to receive the offer of a free call with you. How to tell your story so that your ideal client goes from thinking, oh, that's nice, to thinking, oh my God, I have to work with you. You're amazing. And then the 6 essential steps that lead to gaining new clients and putting more money in your bank account. So that is what is in store for today. And I'm excited to be here. So thanks so much for being here with me. Let's see. Oops, I guess I wanted to share this in my group. So give me just a second here. Okay. I wish that was like a faster thing that we could do, but it's okay. All right. So I wanted to share a little bit about myself so that you can just get to know me and see how I even got on this journey, how I have been able to build that 6-figure business that you perhaps want to be building yourself. So when I first got started, I used to be a school teacher, and I spent about a year. Actually, this month is my 8th year in business. So woohoo, 8 years. That feels exciting. And when I was looking to transition out of teaching and moving into coaching, I went and got a coaching certification. And I spent about a year saying, I don't know crap about sales and marketing. And so you can imagine I didn't get too many clients saying that. But what really did it for me was I eventually quit my job, moved to California, and really became determined to learn about sales from a place that made me feel good. Instead of thinking that all sales were sleazy or, like I had a kind of a picture of um, I had a picture of what I thought, sleazy salespeople looked like, kind of that used car salesman type of like, I don't really care what you're looking for because I'm going to sell you what I've got type of thing. And I just knew I didn't want to be that, right? I knew I only wanted to offer my coaching services to people that I thought were a good fit. And so I wanted to find out how can I do that with heart. So I was trained in a heart-centered model of sales, and then I got a lot of practice by assisting at other people's events and doing sales for them. And it got kind of reflected back to me, hey, you're pretty good at this, even though you don't think that you are. You've got this like personality for it, and you can really connect with people. And that's all it is, ladies, is just connection. It's really building a connection with somebody. It's listening to them, hearing what they have to say, and then kind of drawing lines from what they say they're looking for to what you're in fact offering. So after spending sleepless nights, oh my God, am I ever going to make this work? Am I ever going to get this business to be sustainable so that I know I don't have to go back to teaching again? I went on that journey of really learning sales. And not only did I get good at it, but a company ended up hiring me to do sales on their behalf. And I was responsible for leading teams that sold over $4 million in coaching packages over a 2-year span. And I just got really comfortable with having that conversation and actually excitable to talk to people about what's possible for them and to see beyond their current circumstances and not to make a decision based on their current bank account, but instead learn how to make a decision based on the vision that they're holding for themselves and betting on themselves. So I'm excited to be here with you today to teach you about that single conversation that can literally change someone's life. So the first thing I wanted to chat with you about is the fear that comes up, the fear of sales that comes up. Let me see if I can move these notes so that I'm not turning away from you. So we all have that fear of sales if we're not yet good at it, right? There's always that sense of, oh my gosh, is somebody going to think I'm pushy? Or is, if they say, no, thanks, I can't afford you, and I push back a little bit, is that going to be seen as pushy or salesy, right? So there's all these things that go on in our head. And if you don't try to overcome the things that are going on in your head, you're never going to be able to be good at sales. Now, let me back up because I know for some of you, you don't want to be good at sales because there's a meaning behind that for you. If you're good at sales, then what, right? Then that means I'm pushy, or then that means, I found my salesy side. Maybe there's a part of you that knows you're pretty good at convincing people to do something, and you're afraid of the power behind that. So the first thing you want to think about is what's the belief that's holding you back, right? What do you keep repeating to yourself that's keeping you staying stuck in the I'm afraid of selling mode? Because if you don't uncover that and try to work on that while you're working on some of these how-tos that I'm going to share with you, it's not going to work, right? So I want you to write down a couple of beliefs that you have. What does it mean if you're good at sales, right? Or what does it mean if you're really good at enrolling people into your business? What negative connotation might that have for you? All right. Putting that aside, because I don't want to get into the mindset thing today, I really wanted to teach you some key pieces to the sales conversation. So just putting that aside right now. The first key I want to teach you about to enrolling new clients without feeling pushy is to get really clear. Who is your niche? So I just had a conversation with someone yesterday, and she was pretty good about describing who, with the kind of coach she is. But I was describing to her how important it is to really know the group of people that you're serving and why they need that type of coach. Right? So if you, this was not her niche, but I'll just give an example. If you're an accountability coach, if you help people kind of get shit done, that might not land very well unless there's someone that you're marketing to, a group of people that you're marketing to that wants the accountability. So who needs accountability, right? Who needs sales coaching? Who needs self-care practices? And when you identify the group of people that needs the thing that you're offering, your marketing lands so much better. So get super clear on the group of people that you want to serve and then understanding their problems so that you can speak a marketing message that's going to land directly on their ears. They're going to be like, oh my God, it's like you're speaking directly to me. So I don't know if you know this, but if somebody says that to you, if somebody says that about your emails or your Facebook Lives, then you're doing something right, right? When somebody says, oh my gosh, it's like you're speaking directly to me, you were speaking directly to your ideal client. Okay, so let's make sure. Okay, so I'm sure you've been taught this before, and I'll just go over it really quickly because a lot of people say, but how do I describe what I do when I go networking or if I'm even at a party and people say, so Katie, what do you do? Right? So you want to start with a verb, right? It's not a noun, right? So even in America, like we answer, oh, I'm a teacher, or oh, I'm a police officer, or whatever. But instead, I want you to answer with a verb like I help or I support or I coach, right? So some sort of verb. Here's my English teacher coming out of me. Some sort of verb that describes what you actually do. So I, help, this specific group of people with or who struggle with, this urgent problem, get the exciting solution. So that's kind of the way you plug it in. So I help this group of people who struggle with this urgent problem get this exciting solution, right? So you don't want it to sound robotic, but I just want you to understand a structure from which you should be working from. And, it doesn't have to be my exact template, but just a structure so that you're understanding that you're going to talk about the verb, like something that you're doing. You're going to talk about the group of people, the problem they're struggling from, and the result that they want that you help them get. Okay, so really having such clarity on the people that you're serving. It's like the most non-sexy work of the business, right? Doing market research, but it is the most important foundational thing that you could do. So if you're having a hard time finding people to interview for market research, then I would question your niche. Why is it so hard to find those people? Because if you think it's hard to find the people for a free market research call, what are the beliefs that you're going to create in your head with how hard it is to find these people to pay for your service, right? So I really want you to push past the resistance that you may feel to getting in touch with people and getting them to say yes to a market research conversation. Because the gems that you get from that market research it's going to inform all of your marketing from then forward, right? And that's one of the things I help my clients do, creating a chart that talks about, the pain points, the things they want instead, and the processes that you use to help them get there. And that becomes really the foundation of all your marketing. So knowing your group and then interviewing them in some capacity are two of the most important foundational pieces to getting good at sales, right? So let me just bring that back to, because today is all about enrolling new clients without feeling pushy. So why is that not pushy? Well, when you're talking to a group of people and you're identifying the problem that they have and the solution that you're going to help them get, can you see why they're magnetically attracted to you? So you're not going out there and pushing yourself on these people. You're speaking to them and they're coming to you because of what you're saying. That's why it's not pushy. They're actually coming to you saying, I want to know more about you. Okay, so if you can answer those questions about your ideal client, right? What's the problem that they're suffering from? What's the result that they want? What's the exciting solution that you offer? Okay, the second part I wanted to share with you today, and I know I'm going really fast, but I just want to get this in, and I don't want this to be, an hour-long Facebook Live. But the second key that I think works really well to enrolling new clients without feeling pushy is being able to tell your personal story in a compelling way that gets people to identify that you've been where they are now, right? So there's 4 parts to the story, but basically, like, even though it's your story, you're telling the story like as if it were your ideal clients too, right? So it's like you're saying, I get you. I was once where you are now. And then I had an insight that changed everything. And, now my life is so much better. And that's why I'm so passionate about the work that I do, because it changed my life and I think it can change yours. So I realize that not everybody watching today has a personal story that's directly related to what you're helping your people with. And if that's the case, then talk about an ideal client, or talk about a client that you helped or a loved one, where it really created the passion that's inside of you for continuing on with this niche, right? So a lot of times people will see the results people get and they're like, whoa, I cannot stop doing this because the results that I'm seeing are amazing, right? So even if you didn't experience that, you're seeing it in other people and it's making you feel excited and passionate about continuing the work that you're doing. So I find that people skip telling their story because they don't think it's important, or they don't want to talk about themselves too much. If you've heard the 80-20 rule, like if you're chatting with an ideal client, they should be talking 80% of the time and you should be talking 20% of the time. So why waste the airspace with your story? Well, it creates a sense of connection that simply cannot be created otherwise. It gives them a chance to get to know you. And it almost like, it doesn't take you off the pedestal, so to speak, but it reminds them that you're just as normal as they are. You have a normal life just like they do. Because if they see you on this pedestal, you're so blessed, or you have so much money, yada, yada, right? Like if you're making a lot of money already, they may think that you're like disconnected from their reality. And so if you tell a story that says like, I get you, I was totally there, I know what it's like, right? I know what it's like to lay in bed and have the weight of my bills like on my chest, and like I can hardly take a deep breath, I'm so stressed about money, right? I remember that feeling, right? And then I had this pivotal moment, and that changed everything. And then I was able to pay off that debt, and I was able to, right? And you paint the picture of what they want. So there's 4 elements to the story. You want positioning, you want connection, you want to show them the guiding light, and then you want to leave them with inspiration and insight. Okay? So positioning, connection, what's the guiding light, and what is the inspiration and insight that can take them forward. So those are the 4 key components of the story. And so really, like, the positioning is so that they want to listen to you, right? So you start with, even though I've served 250 clients already, I still have a nervous excitement before I start my sales calls, right? So there's a little positioning there. It's like, I'm not a newbie. I've served over 250 people so far. And at the same time, it's not like sales is something that I could do in my sleep, right? I still have to presence myself, ground my energy. I get the nerves, right? So I'm connecting with them. I'm positioning and I'm adding a sense of connection to it. When I talk about the turning point or the pivotal moment, right? That's the guiding light that you're helping your clients see. Like, I can shine the guiding light on you in your business, right? I can show you the way, right? So for me, it's like my turning point was not only committing to learning heart-centered sales, but also going out there and practicing and having it reflected back to me that I was actually good at it. It was like I was waiting for someone to give me permission to say I'm good at sales. Right? And so it was like the pivotal moment for me was the belief that I could. And then the proof, because I was doing it for other people, to see, oh, I can totally do this for myself as well. And not only that, but I can show others. So I moved my turning point into inspiration and insight by showing that I can help other people learn how to overcome their fear of sales as well. So those are the key elements of your personal background story. I like to call it your compelling background story, but just finding a way to share a 2-minute or less version of your story so that you can create some connection with people that you meet, and they really get a sense of who you are and what's important to you and the journey that you've taken to get yourself to this expert status that you're in right now. Okay. The third key I wanted to share with you for enrolling new clients without feeling pushy is really learning how to have those successful sales conversations. So here's where the rubber meets the road, right? Here's where some of you may be like, give me a template, I'll never stray. And some of you may be like, I hate templates. I don't want to sound robotic. I just want to go with the flow of the conversation. And what I say to both of you is it's a mixture of both. There's plenty of templates out there that you can follow. I've got my own template, and I based my template on my own personal experience as well as other programs that gave me templates, right? So it's not like I'm going to say, my template's the end all be all. What I will say is my template keeps you on track of the conversation. You have a structure to work from, like to work within, right? And at the same time, it's really not meant to be a verbatim word for word thing, but instead and what I was helping my clients do last year, I did a special Black Friday deal, and they walked away with a customized template. And what I was helping them do was take a look at the questions and stories that I have in my template and creating ones that make more sense for them in their business, right? So a customized sales template is a lot easier to get behind because you actually helped write the stories and the recommendations and all of that. The reason why I think a template is so important is if you don't have one, you go off on a tangent and you end up losing valuable time, right? All of a sudden, 6-7 minutes went by and you're like, if I were to ask myself, what's the takeaway of the last 6 to 7 minutes? If you can't answer that, then you just went on a tangent, right? And it doesn't serve anybody to do that. And so having an outline at the very least keeps you on track and reminds you not to go off on tangents because every minute of this conversation is important. Okay, so I teach about the being and the doing. So what do I mean by that? The being is the person you are, like the person that woke up in the morning, the person that listened to a meditation, the person that danced out her nervous energy before the call, the person that feels really confident in what she's offering, the person that's excited about enrolling a new client and excited about the possibility that lies ahead in this conversation. That's the being. So if you're finding yourself in that negative space, like, oh, this person probably doesn't have any money, or, something that they wrote in the application, if you do that, made you think, oh, they're not going to want to sign up. If you're feeling any of that before the call, guess what? You ain't going to sign anybody up. You're just not. So this conversation starts with your way of being. My favorite way to ground myself is to dance. I like to put on one of my favorite songs. I go out in my living room. I feel like my dog is so used to this by now, but I go out in my living room and I just dance my heart out. I mean, I am like sweating by the end of it. So I really like to find a song that, pumps me up, right? But sometimes I will say I might be already like da 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 da, and for those of you that know me, I can I'm already very energetic, right? So sometimes I want to calm myself down. Then I'll do a chair meditation. And I've learned a few different meditations, so not to get into that too much, but whether I'm going to listen to a guided meditation or I'm going to do my own Art of Feminine Presence meditation and really get into my body and ground myself in my office chair and be ready for the call. So that's kind of an essence of the being in this conversation. So then there's the doing. So what do I mean by the doing? So first of all, I want you to understand this is not a coaching call. And, whenever I get someone on the phone that thinks it's a free coaching call, I always go back and check the offer that I made. What made them think that? Because I actually make it really clear now. This is not a free coaching call, right? That doesn't serve anybody's purpose. That's like, you've got a wound there. Let me clean it up and put a Band-Aid over it, right? But I'm not making it go away. When someone's going to call you and talk to you about coaching, they want the thing to go away. And so you really need to understand that this is not a time to coach, but it's a time to get real. How long has this been going on? What do you want instead? How much longer are you willing to put up with this, right? It's getting real. And that sometimes means agitating the problem more than you feel comfortable doing. I find that when I help women with sales, a lot of times the problem and the most stuck area they're in is the fact that they're nurturing and they want to help someone on the call. They want to give them advice and coaching right there on the call to make them feel better. And if you're like me, because I used to do this, there's also a little part that you want to show how smart you are, right? How good you are. But I have found that is the number one mistake in these conversations, to do that. So you really want to stay on template, asking very specific questions that get clarity about where they want to be, where they are now, where they want to be, why can't they get there alone, and how you can help them get there. That's the essence of your conversation. So let's go into the 6 steps of that. Okay, the first one is, I'm sorry, I have so many notes here. I'm like, oh, I wanted to say this, but we'll let it go. The first part of the conversation is building rapport and establishing connection. So, there's something to be said for small talk, right? And it's really grounding the energy. It might even be taking a couple of deep breaths together, right? And just bringing the energy of the 2 people that are in this conversation together. So some sort of building rapport and connection. The second step is learning about them. So I always like to start with the vision. So what do they want to create, right? And I like to ask them a year from now, because my coaching package, depending on where someone is in their business, I work with people for either 6 months or a year. And so I always like to ask, what do you want in the next year? Like, what do you want to be creating, right? So the vision pulls the person into the excitement. I'm not pushing them anywhere. I'm simply asking the question, what's the vision? And then we'll get into some of the challenges. And so, it's like, what's important to you and what's getting in the way, right? Those are some of the questions. You don't want to rush through this step. It's a natural tendency to be looking at the clock like, okay, I've got to be done with this in, 45 minutes or an hour. Depending on the price of your package, I wouldn't try to squeeze in this enrollment conversation into a 15, 20-minute call if you're trying to sell something that's, over $3,000. So that kind of depends, but don't rush the curiosity part. Really dig in and find out about them. And if they're not asking questions or answering your questions deeply, keep digging and asking more questions. Because if you don't go deep in the curiosity phase, you're not going to make a sale, because you're not going to know what's underneath some of the stuff that they're saying. And as a good coach, right, that a lot of times there's stuff underneath the words that people are saying. So you've got to be willing to dig in with more curiosity questions than you might be comfortable with. Okay, so step 3 in the 6 steps to enroll a new client is to expose the gap. And what you're essentially saying is, thank you for sharing, right? I see you. I hear the struggle. And I want you to know that there is hope on the other side. And here's what I'm seeing. Is it okay if I reflect back to you what I've heard to make sure I've got everything, right? And so you reflect back the things that you picked up on that you could help them fix. And then asking things like, do I have all this right? Did I miss anything, right? And then once you've exposed that gap, you want to make 1 to 2 recommendations of what you would like to do with them in the work together that could help them overcome the challenges that they've identified in this conversation. Why do you give recommendations? So I've seen this done a few different ways. I've seen some people over-deliver on the recommendations, and that does not serve you. So please listen up if this is you. The purpose of the recommendations is to give them a sense of what your coaching style is. It also gives them a sense that you are able to listen, reflect back, and redirect things that you're seeing that they're not doing right, okay? But if you give them a recommendation with like a complete how-to, if you're like, oh, I've got a template on that, let me send that to you, or I did a webinar on that very thing, let me send you the link to that. If you're promising more things during the sales call, they're likely not going to sign up with you because they're going to want to do what you're assigning them first. So if you hear that often from your people, like, oh, thank you so much for everything. I appreciate what you shared with me. I'm going to do what you said. And if that doesn't work, I'll call you back. If you hear that, then you know that you went overboard on the recommendations. So what I like to do instead is to show them the gap that's there, right? So you said you want this, you shared this challenge with me, and I can see already you're not going to get there. So here's the gap. You're not going to get there until you get this thing done. And the very first thing that I would do with you is this thing, whatever that is, right? And I would talk to them about it. And I would talk about clients that I helped with that thing and the result that they got. So I'm teaching, but I'm also not giving them an assignment. I'm showing them how I would help them through that. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. Definitely give me a comment or anything to let me know that you're with me, because I don't have my phone here, so I can't see inside my group at the same time as here. But so if I don't get to your comments, I will get to them later on. And I know this is already going really long, so let me just kind of move through this. But if you have any questions, please post them below. Okay. After you expose the gap, you want to be able to make your offer, right? So this is where I would say, if I think they're a good client, I would say something like, hey, I really enjoyed our conversation. I can see what you want to create and I can see what's in your way. And I feel really confident that I can help you get there. Is this something you'd like to hear more about? Do you want to know what it would be like to work with me? So I was asked permission. They say yes. Then I will draw conclusions based on what they told me. I'll say, here's what I do in my program. Based on what you shared here, I'm going to do X. Based on what you shared in this part of the conversation, together we're going to do Y, right? So I'm always drawing lines from what they shared to what I help them do in my program. Leave out the process. That bears repeating. Leave out the process. Only talk about the results that they're going to get by working with you. And of course, they're going to want a little bit of structure. So let them know how many calls, how frequent, can they record them? Sure, share about that kind of stuff. But don't get bogged down in the details, because what we want to know is, are they even interested in working with you for that length of time, for that type of support? And then we can get into the nitty-gritty details after that, right? So don't overshare during this time, but give them kind of an overview and then invite them in and say, is that something that you're looking for? Or how does that all sound to you? What does that length of time sound like? What do you see yourself getting working with me, right? Those kind of curiosity questions. And then finally, if they're really leaning into what you're offering, step 5 is to actually ask for the sale. So this is one of the mistakes I see most people making, is they don't ask for the sale. They think step 4, making the offer, is the same as step 5, asking for the sale, and it's not. So you need to get to a place in the conversation where you ask them, so are you ready to get started? Right? Or you can ask them, if they say, I don't know, not quite, great. Tell me what's going through your head right now. And just listen, right? This is instead of convincing. Convincing is when you do all the talking. Well, my program is this, my program is that. I want you to sign up because da-da-da-da-da. No. You want to be asking them questions. What's on your mind? Tell me what's coming up for you, so that you can address the concerns that they're sharing with you. You're not convincing anybody. You're answering or responding to what they're sharing with you, right? If they're sharing things with you, they're really leaning in. They trust you. So it's a conversation. It's not a sale, right? You're not trying to close the deal as much as you're trying to have a conversation to see, is this in fact the right fit? And if so, what do we need to overcome to get to the yes? Do not move on to the next step until you feel like you've addressed every one of their concerns or questions. Let me tell you, ladies, it comes back to bite you in the butt later on, whether it's through an angry client later on because there was a lack of understanding, right? Or expectations that were not addressed, or cancellations later on because they weren't convinced in the first place. So you are not doing yourself any favors rushing through the concerns or objections phase of the conversation. Once we feel like we've overcome the concerns and objections, then I'll ask again. So what do you say? Are you ready to get started? Or I may change it up and say, you can get started today with a $500 deposit. And that way you can, we're saying yes, and you can move your money and figure out, what we need to do to get your balance paid or get you set up on your payment plan or that kind of thing. And then I'll book the first session and I'll send them a contract and that kind of thing. So that's step 6, which is agree on the next steps. So I don't have time today to get into an onboarding process, but you should have an onboarding process that you take each one of your new clients through so that nothing gets left behind or in the dust or fallen through the cracks, so to speak. Okay, so that is it for today. So those are my 3 steps to enrolling new clients without feeling pushy. I hope that you found some great value in understanding that you've got to know your ideal client and the message that's going to land on them. You've got to learn how to tell your compelling background story so that you're building connection, so that people are getting to know you and like you and trust you before you even get to the sales call. And then understanding the 6 important steps of that sales conversation, using a lot of curiosity and questions and acknowledgement to get them to a phase where they're excited to work with you and say yes to your package. So if you have got any questions, let me know. Happy to be here and to do these trainings. I'm going to do one more this week on Thursday, and we'll be talking about overcoming objections. So let me know if you've got questions or comments below, and I will be back here on Thursday at the same time. All right, thank you so much for being here. Have an amazing day. Bye.